Now, when we turn to tort law, we will see that things can look a little bit different. Let's turn to our first tort law scenario. In this scenario, we meet the Richards. The Richards bought their house 20 years ago, and they were a very healthy family until a new factory was opened next to them 5 years ago. And since then, they have noticed that they all have very, very awful coughs. First it was Mrs. Richards, and then it was Mr. Richards, and then it was Lucy, and then it was Baby George. When they spoke to their GP said, I suspect your health has deteriorated because of that factory next to you. Not only has their health deteriorated, but Mrs. Richards has had to have quite a bit of time off work because of her poor health. And Mr. Richards is extremely stressed from looking after his wife and sick Lucy and sick Baby George. Scenario B. In scenario B, we meet Mr. John Smith. Mr. John Smith was a very, very respectable academic in the legal team at a very, very famous and prestigious university. He had a great reputation. He had written many books and many journal articles, and everybody loved Mr. John Smith at work. But one day, Mr. John Smith annoyed another academic from another very well-known university, but with a questionable reputation. And Mr. John Smith annoyed this academic so much that this academic made up a few stories about Mr. John Smith and passed it on to an academic journal, who then passed it on to a local newspaper, who then passed it on to a national newspaper, which led to a very nasty article being published in this national newspaper. When Mr. John Smith went out to get his Sunday paper a few weeks ago, he was astonished to see what had been written about him in this very popular newspaper. Mr. John Smith is now very angry, and he wishes to start legal proceedings. In all those scenarios, we have people which have been injured in some way. Mr. John Smith's reputation has been injured, and the Richards have not only been injured physically, but also Mrs. Richards has not been able to work, and Mr. Richards has suffered a significant amount of stress as a result of the problem caused by the factory. These scenarios are examples of tort law cases. They are different to contract law cases because none of them exclusively involves and refers to an agreement between two parties. The Richards did not have an agreement with the factory, nor did Mr. John Smith have an agreement with the other academic. So these are not contract law cases.